Welcome to episode 69 of Crave the Book. In today's episode, Amber and I are covering chapters 110 through 114 of Tracy Wolff Covet. And in this episode, we are getting acquainted with Remy and Calder. Plus, we have some really great spoilers at the end that kind of talk about charm and some things that we noticed throughout Covet. So just make sure that you bounce out when you hear that wolf howl if you have not read Charm yet. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. Woohoo! 69. 69. Well, they're like nothing.
It's the least sexy episode.
Yeah. Nothing.
Although they are making lots of goo-goo sexy eyes at each other.
I know there's a lot of sexual tension in these scenes for no good reason, really.
I think that Grace has a confinement kink.
She does. She gets very flirtatious, more so than usual.
Yep, and it's because she's in an enclosed space.
I guess we'll
maybe a little bit of like a kind of like a voyeuristic kind of thing, or the opposite of voyeuristic. Exhibitionist, a little bit, maybe.
Yeah, because it seems like on one hand, she's really protective of Hudson, but then she's like, you can flirt with my boyfriend. Like, it's really weird energy. And
also she's okay with Remy flirting with her as well. Like, he's clearly doing it, even if it's not got any foundation to it. She's still like, yep. Yeah. This is okay.
Yeah, this is perfectly acceptable because Remy has something that we want, so.
Yep.
She's using flirting as a tool, except for with Hudson.
Yeah.
But
because in that scenario, he is the tool.
Yeah. Well, guys, we are doing chapters 110 through 114, and I do have it's not even so much as a charm spoiler as it is an Easter egg type thing, but I have a feeling that the conversations that Amber and I have afterwards are going to kind of go into charm spoilers. So just make sure that you listen out for that wolf howl. And when you hear that, if you don't want to have charm spoiled for you, if you haven't had a chance to read it, you might want to bounce out. Same with court. We definitely have some court spoilers as well, so just listen for the howl. But last we left off, Grace and Hudson and Flint were taken to the prison, and they met Remy and Calder, and they're just kind of hanging out in the cell getting acquainted. So we still our big question last episode was, how the heck did Nuri know Remy's name to know to tell Flint to go find Remy? And it's like the question's proposed like 3 times during these chapters, and we still don't get answers.
Yeah, I mean, how did Flint even know that Remy was a prisoner? Because the first thing that I would have thought was like, oh, maybe he's like a nice guard.
Right.
Or he's maybe the chef. Or like the infirmary guy, like there's always an out through the prison with the infirmary. Always.
Did Flint say? Did he say we want to see Remy, or we want to be
bunk with him?
Huh?
They said bunk with him. Like they said, we're going to allocate you a cell, and he went with Remy.
Oh, I don't know. That's.
Like, it was a hell of an assumption. I mean, it proved right.
Very odd.
But knowing me, I would have cocked up and alluded to the fact I didn't know who Remy was by going, "Is he my god?" or something.
Right. Like, I want to talk to Remy, and then not like just let them fill in the blanks. Only give them an inch.
Yeah. But I don't know, Flint, like, full on just dives off that deep end and goes, yep, no, this is the hill I'm dying on. Remy must be a prisoner.
Yeah, and then again, Grace is like, how did Nuri know to mention Remy? She said that we know that a dragon got out by using one of the flowers. But then, like, it never gets brought back up.
No. And even in this, the first chapter of this episode that we're doing, he gets told that Flint's mum is the Dragon Queen and that she was the one who told him to go find Remy. And he just goes,
Yeah.
He, like, completely skims over that and, like, avoids the subject altogether. And then I'm like, so he doesn't care?
Or maybe he purposefully was avoiding the subject.
Maybe.
I have a feeling
Maybe.
this sounds like one of those things that Tracy, like, jotted down in her little notebook and that we're going to get in the spin-off series.
Well, like, so when you're writing a book, there's, like, loose ends and red herrings, specifically so that you can kind of answer them later if you don't necessarily have the answer yet. Also, plot holes. Is it a plot hole or is it a big dark hole that ends in a huge plot twist? We don't know.
Yeah, I've got like a Trello board and it's just titled Unanswered Questions for my book. That way my first book is published, but I posed a bunch of questions in it that I never answered. And now I'm having to make sure that I'm keeping those in consideration as I'm writing the second book.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So maybe we will get more because, you know, sometimes when I'm reading, I'm like, oh, this wasn't thought out very well. But I just had an instance of something in Covet that doesn't get answered till Charm that Tracy had to have been aware of all the way back when she was writing Covet. So I will be sharing that when we get to the spoiler section. But it just kind of goes to show that, you know, we might get our answer to this way later. So Grace is really trying to, like, you know, get information, and Hudson's like, yeah, well, can we speed this, like, process up? Is that, you know, because Remy's basically
He's
saying,
impatient.
Yeah.
This is day one of Infinity and he's already bored.
But few minutes. They've only been in there.
They're already like, what's the plan? Like, surely, if you've just arrived in a prison and you've just met a guy that's apparently going to be your savior to getting out, wouldn't you be wanting to also know the lay of the prison? Because if your escape is specifically linked to one person, what if that one person fails? You still need to know how to get out without that one person having all of the cards.
Yeah. Day one for me would be getting in there, asking them if, do you have a piece of paper? Like, do you have paper and a pen?
Map.
Yeah. I would be trying to I mean, they do have a piece of paper because Remy draws the prison for them. So I would
But not because they asked.
No, he just does it on his own. He's the only one who's using his head here. I would be taking notes, planning, trying to...
I want to know the rules as well. Like, so do we get searched? Like, you say that we're going to need a whole lot of money. Where do we get this money from? You say that we need money. How do we get money? Do you have money?
It's like trying to learn how to play Dungeons and Dragons. It's like...
they just arrived and then they're like, okay, cool. How do we get out? And like, that's a bit preemptive.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Especially for these two people who have, I mean, especially with Remy, he's been there his whole life. He's like, you think you're just going to walk out? Like, you think you're just going to...
You're special? Yeah. Okay. Yeah, he's like, oh, so you're going to be the two people in existence that are able to break the unbreakable seal. Sure.
Yeah. And then Hudson's like, not think.
Well, we are.
We know.
Full of confidence there, mate.
Yeah. No wonder Remy didn't like him.
Yeah, but then he also does like Grace for the same reasons that he dislikes Hudson, with like the overconfidence, the get stuff done matter of fact. Maybe it's different coming from a woman.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well,
but there are lots of like sexual tension throughout from both of them, and I think that maybe Remy is trying to rile Hudson up deliberately.
I think so too, because you got to consider that he says that he's been kind of keeping tabs on Grace. He's been seeing her, dreaming about her, seeing her in his visions. He's got the same powers as Alice, so he's able to kind of see her other than when she was in the gargoyle. With Jacob. And when she was in the gargoyle, he lost track of her, but
Well, she said, "Oh, that must have been the time when she was with Jackson," and I was just like, "That's a hell of a leap." She's like, "Yes, when my trajectory, my future path was changed." And I'm like, right.
But, you know, maybe he feels like he already knows her, so he's more willing to kind of joke with her and stuff. Whereas Hudson, that's where he's like, you know, you kind of got lazy in the mate department here.
Yeah. If somebody had been saying that they had been dreaming about you your whole life and that they had seen you like always leading up to this point, wouldn't you want to test that?
Maybe a little.
Yeah, okay. So I have just met you and you say that you have magical hoodoo powers and you're the only person in this prison that still has the magical hoodoo powers. Tell me something that you would not have known. You can't just tell from my face.
Right.
And you can't just, like, tell me something that you know because you've dreamt of me. Show me your cards.
Yeah, like, at least, like, what? Where
you say that you say that you can see the future. I see no proof of this.
Right. Where are my parents right now? Because that could be knowing the future and the past would be an easy thing for him to answer. Yeah. It's Grace not collecting enough.
No, because so far all they've seen is him be able to like snap his fingers and there's like sparks come out.
Yeah.
That's not seeing the future. And also, who's saying that he doesn't tell every single girl that arrives in his cell that he's been waiting his whole life for them? Now, it could just be a bit.
Now, he did know about the flowers.
Did he, though? Because when I was reading it back through, I saw no mention of it. Like, specifically flowers.
He said that he knows that he gets out using a flower.
Did he?
Yeah, he says.
But was that before or after Grace mentions the flowers?
I'm not sure.
Because that was what I was like, wait, they're saying that so he knows about the flowers. And I'm like, did he? I don't see him mentioning the flowers anywhere before Grace says Matt. So I was like, maybe he's cold reading her.
Yeah, you know, no lie, when I first read the book, I really was suspicious of Remy.
He gives no proof that he can read the future. Or see the future.
Yeah, and he says weird things, like the whole, like, I've been waiting for you ever since I was born, and...
But so that is a figure of speech, right?
I mean, it can be, but I think that
if somebody said that to you,
I've been waiting all my life for you.
Yeah, if they said it, whether they meant it or whether they said it, your first reaction wasn't go, oh, so you remember the moment you were born?
Right.
No, that's not everybody else's reaction. Yeah. Even if he does. Because now he just sounds melodramatic when he's like, of course I remember when I was born. I was born in a prison. It reminds me of my sister. I once asked, I was like, are you cold? And she goes, of course I'm cold. I was born in December. I'm always cold.
Like, shut up.
I'm like, what? Where did that come from?
I'm a Capricorn.
Are you being melodramatic? Just like, of course I remember being born. No.
Right.
But yeah, like, I'm like, well, he probably can, because he's got this weird thing with, like, time and stuff. But yeah, the leap from, I've been waiting for this moment since I was born, to escape the prison, obviously. Like, not to meet you, dingbat.
Yeah, because he doesn't seem all that concerned with making sure that anybody else gets out.
Oh, no, not at all. I mean, Calder, maybe a little bit more than the rest, but she's always the one that pipes up and goes, oh, don't forget me. Oh, don't forget me.
Yeah, she is insistent on getting out. But yeah. And you, so I might have misread. You noted that his mother died, right? And he said that Cyrus was to blame for his mother dying, and that his mother was a witch, but not a very strong one. I read that she was a strong one, so maybe
it says that she wasn't a very strong one.
Okay.
Which makes me think that she didn't die of, like, normal causes. Like, you would always think that your like mother's like, oh, it doesn't matter because she's got love. She's powered by love. But if he watched her die because her power was not enough to save her, then he probably would say that she wasn't a very strong one. The way that he says it so callous, either he didn't have a good relationship with her, which we know not to be true, or he saw something happen when he was growing up, either when she died or whatever, to prove that her power was not very strong in the first place.
Right. It's not like Harry Potter, where it's like, oh yeah, your mother's dead. Yeah, well, she must not been very good then.
Yeah. It's like, wow, her dueling was rubbish. And then he also kind of speaks a bit more about his dad, who he doesn't even know, than his mother, who was with him for the first 5 years of his life.
So we're okay. Yeah. Well, we can't say too much about the spoiler, but
no. But he says that he left him with the gift of being able to see the future.
It's starting to unravel.
Mm-hmm. So I'm like, okay, so maybe his dad is a lot more powerful than his mother, and that's why he's got his dad's traits and not his mum's traits.
Okay. So it is starting to kind of lean in the direction of our theory, which we can talk more about with the spoilers. But now that rereading it, there's a lot of things starting to unfold. So okay.
Yeah. Oh, and the other thing is that dragons lose their dragon. Vampires don't lose their vampireness. So Hudson's still drinking his blood. He probably still couldn't go out in the daylight. But he still has all of his vampire strength, right?
Does he have his strength, or does he just have his fangs?
I don't know.
Later when he fights, he wins against large creatures, so I'm assuming he has.
Yeah. So I'm like, okay, well, does Flint also retain his strength?
Is he naturally... he picks Grace up easily in the first book.
Yeah. But meanwhile, apparently, witches and warlocks and things, they have their powers completely dampened down. They have their power removed. So how much power would have to be removed before he's left with only being able to just go and click his fingers and sparks? Because at this point, is he a witch still? Because he's also able to lure her with his eyes, and
he's not wearing a cuff though.
Oh, is he not?
No, he's not wearing one, and he's in normal clothes.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that he's kind of the exception because he's been there so long and the guards like him.
Okay.
So,
but Calder does.
I think she does, yes, because I think that she got into the prison through typical means.
Which we don't find out.
No, we don't find out, but I think that she gets in for petty crime, which is the sector of the prison that they're in.
Mm-hmm. And we also do find out that they both pipe up when they hear that Cyrus is the one they're after, because they immediately jump on board and go, yep, I'm in. So everybody's got a vendetta against Cyrus.
A common cause.
Yep. I loved the bit where they go, oh, so what are you in for? And he's like, I turned my dad's bones to dust. And they're like, oh, that's cool. Yeah. And then he was like, yeah, just his bones. He's still alive. And they're like, damn.
And then they find out that who his dad is, and then they're like, damn.
Yeah, it was great. It was like you can imagine the conversations if you did end up in prison. You're like, oh, so what are you in for? And everybody's got to kind of one up each other.
Yeah.
In terms of the crime. And they go, oh, Flint, what are you in for? And he's like, oh, I tried to kill Grace. No one asks Grace where she is, because it's so obvious she's done nothing wrong in her life ever. Don't you want to know what I did?
I know when Remy at the end, when he's like, what's the worst thing you've ever done? And it's like, Grace, I stole Macy's Pop-Tarts.
Yeah.
I accidentally washed a shirt that said dry clean only.
I didn't eat anything on Wingo Wednesday because it was gross. genuinely, she's done nothing wrong. So therefore, like, she probably should be a lot more fearful of prison. Not just because she's very, very vulnerable. She's not just lost her gargoyle. She's lost her entire safety net.
Yeah, she doesn't even know what to anticipate. She's like, oh God, what did I do?
Yeah. And then, like, she's, like, just relying on the fact, she's like, well, it's okay, because I've got Calder, Remy, Flint, and Hudson to save me. And I'm like, yeah, but wait till you're on your own.
Right.
You've got nothing. And it seems as though everybody else, no matter what faction they belonged to, would kind of retain some of their normal powers. Like strength.
Yeah, she has absolutely nothing.
Yeah. And I was like, oh, and also she's a woman, because it's a prison. I mean, I don't assume that they'd be, like, just mixed in a cell, but apparently they are. And Calder is there, but she's huge, like Amazonian. So she's probably small and diminutive too. So it's not looking up for her. Yeah. Like, I would be immediately fearful and scared and just worried about every single corner. And, like, the way that they're like, oh, yeah, so the bathroom's over there in the shadowy bit. And I'm like, nope. I'm holding it. I'm holding it for the rest of my prison sentence. I'm not going in the shadowy corner.
Here's a little hole where our food comes out.
Oh, we're lucky today. It's mashed potatoes. And what was it, chicken?
Yeah.
Chicken and mashed potatoes. And you're like, if that's the best day, I'm really concerned.
I'm imagining,
I like chicken.
I'm imagining, like, school cafeteria food.
I was imagining, like, gruel.
No.
Do you have gruel?
I mean, there's nowhere to just acquire gruel.
No, I know. Where does it come from?
I'm assuming that
gruel shop.
Gruel could be used to define any manner of slop fed to someone you don't care about.
I think it's like just really watery porridge, isn't it?
Gruel? I don't know. I always thought that it was like just the slop, like all the food.
It's such a disgusting word as well.
Gruel.
Oh yeah, it's a really thin version of porridge that can be often drunk rather than eaten. Yeah. Grim.
You know what else is grim? Hudson with a bald spot. And I love how this was brought up, where nobody was talking about this. Grace just in her own brain was like, he looks stressed. He looks like he's going to start pulling his hair out. Hudson, what are you thinking about? You with a bald spot? Like, just...
Oh no, because like there was a bit where he said, like, what are you laughing about? And she goes, I'm not laughing. Like, completely deadpan. He's like, you are on the inside. I can feel it.
Yeah.
I'm like, what else can he feel through the bond? That's creepy. When he's never been in tune with her emotions before, except when he was actually in her head, all of a sudden he can now feel her laughing on the inside. I think it's because they don't have anything else going on in their heads. It's the only string for her that's left.
Right, and it's the brightest. It's like the most...
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if she was feeling anything, the only string that she has to kind of push any emotions down would be the bond. So maybe he's feeling her and hearing her clearer than ever before because she doesn't have so many silly strings.
Well, I've got bad news for him because there's not a whole lot going on up there.
No.
Then again, that's exactly how my brain works. If my husband were to ask me, what are you thinking? Like, most of the time I just have to say, oh, nothing, or I'm just spacing out because I'm thinking something stupid.
Yep. Yep. And it would take longer to explain than it would to just go, you don't want to know.
Right. Like, what are you thinking about? Oh, yeah. Cornbread, you know. What? So Remy basically says that he sees himself leaving with a flower. He's always seen himself leaving with a flower. However, they've only got three flowers, and already there's Hudson, Flint, and Grace, so that already takes 3. But then they don't factor in that the blacksmith is apparently huge because he's a giant. So even a whole flower might not be enough. And then Remy says that he knows that he gets out with a flower, and Calder's like, wait, me. So she wants a flower, and this is about the part where first read through I was getting stressed. I was like, oh, it's not gonna work.
Someone's gonna die.
Yeah, I had it in my head. I'm like, they're gonna get out, but they're all gonna die.
Or someone's gonna get left behind.
Yeah, I thought for sure.
And rescue Mish.
I had it in my head that Flint was gonna get left. I don't know why. Like they just made
Poor
up.
Flint.
Him and Grace just finally like found their peace. And
then she's like, "Do you know what? You do deserve to be in prison. You tried to kill me, bitch," and then run away.
I thought it was going to be like a sacrificing thing. Like, you guys go ahead, I'll stay.
No, I immediately knew that the 3 flowers was not going to be enough, because even if they managed to get the giant back, it's like they took the minimum number of tickets, and something was going to happen.
Yeah, you always take an extra.
Yeah, and that's not just like, oh, this is a contingency plan for one person turns up, or if I eat a flower and nothing happens, or I drop a flower, then one person has to stay behind. So you've lost your failsafe. This isn't just oversubscribed by 1 ticket. They've got 3 more tickets to leave. So they're a little bit screwed. Yeah,
and Grace is like, what if we just like, or no, Flint said we could just do like half a flower, and Remy's like, yeah, if you want to look half dead.
The thing is though, like they surely, if you did take half a flower, you would be worse off, because you might not be even just unconscious, you might be in just cardiac arrest for perpetual time. And then you're just dead.
Yeah, you could make more of an issue for yourself.
They don't know what these flowers do or how to get them out of her hand, and suddenly they're talking about taking half doses.
This is not how you safely do your drugs.
Medication.
Yeah. But like, they did not get any information about how to do anything with these flowers that are literally supposed to make them appear that they are dead, just completely like incapacitate them. They received no drug facts from the crone. They're just like, thank you very much, we'll figure it out.
Yep.
Yeah.
And the problem is, does it just make you look like you have just died on the spot, no reason, and no supernatural person's gonna go, well, that's a bit weird?
Yeah, 3 of them all at the same time.
Just just lying nice and safely. They didn't even like pass out and fall to the ground. They all were just lying on the floor, nice and straight and comfortable. And there seems to be no wounds on them or any reason why they are dead.
Yeah.
What if they wake up on like the autopsy table for suspicious death?
Oh, I was thinking like that they'd get thrown in an incinerator to be like cremated.
Like, yeah, what if they think like, oh no, there's a pandemic in the prison, and they get put in like lockdown.
Yeah.
They get put in one of those body bags and are chucked on a heap.
Right, they're just assuming that the prison, that they're just going to drag him out into a field and leave him. Like, oh, like.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's a strange plan. Yeah. And I would have had many, many more questions than they did.
Well, they're not we've gathered that they're not the best at collecting information before executing very, very death-defying plans.
They're only 18.
I was even more cautious than I am now when I was 18, I dare say.
Like, so here's this drug, it looks like a flower, and it's going to make you look like you're dead.
Can I get a little more information?
How long is the high?
Am I actually dead? Is it like a roofie? Can I still hear? Like,
like, am I actually technically dead? And then like 18 hours later, I will suddenly wake up. Will there be a hangover? Is there an antidote? Like, what if somebody takes it by accident? What if somebody's... Do I, like... What about previous medications? If I'm already on current medications, can I still take these? They didn't ask anything.
Will I fall over immediately? Like, I just take it and die on the spot? Or do I have time to get to...
What if I take 2?
Yeah, will I be double
Do
dead?
I die? Will I be double died, or will it just prolong the 18-hour high?
No, you take 3 of them. That way it reverses it. You can't...
3?
Yeah, you
Okay.
You can't triple die. So you die, and then you die, but then you just die again.
And then once I've taken the flower, how long do I have before I die?
You just die immediately. You just fall over.
That's not how drugs work.
You just crumple.
I don't think I've ever seen an immediate acting drug.
I don't think that there...
It has to pass through your system. It has to either reach your bloodstream or your brain.
I'm sure that there's at least one drug out there that is just immediate. Like, nope, your body just nopes out.
No, just nopes out.
Yeah.
Like, even heroin is not immediate.
No, that's gotta take a little trip through the heart, doesn't it?
Yeah. I mean, it's fast. Like, your pulse, it will send your entire blood system through your entire body in, like, a pump.
Yes, the blood system.
Shut up. Yeah, shut up. But, yeah, like, I would want these questions. Like, if this is a flower, it's a magical flower, and I put it in my mouth, am I, like, falling to the ground, like, then and there? Or do I have a couple of seconds to make myself comfortable?
Do I chew it? Do I swallow it whole?
At that point, I don't think my questions for that would care. I wouldn't care about that. Like, do I take it with dinner?
Yeah, maybe it only works on an empty stomach. Anyway.
We have all the questions.
Yeah. So we find out about the pit, which is where you get to go out and make
shop.
The pit isn't where you shop. That's where you can gamble, right?
Oh,
yeah, that's the pit.
I don't remember. The East Wing is where they are, right? Or is it their West Wing?
I can't remember.
And then the other wing, whichever, the West or the East, whatever, that's where, like, the real criminals go, apparently. And then it's like a Dante's Inferno prison where it goes through, like, 6 cycles of torture. And then it's a lottery at the end, and you get to go to a thing called the pit. Yay!
Yeah, where you can potentially make money. Mm-hmm. And then there's the chamber, which is like your Russian roulette. And if you land on chamber, you get torture, but it's not a pain torture. And at this point, they're just like not giving Grace, Hudson, and Flint any details about what type of torture it is, other than
they're also not giving them any kind of hope.
No,
they're literally like making it out to be the worst thing that they could possibly go through.
Yeah, and then Remy ends on, he tells them that it will make them go through the worst thing that they've ever done over and over again. And then he asks them, what's the worst thing you've ever done? So for Flint, obviously, I would assume that was trying to kill Grace.
Yep.
For Hudson, that was trying to kill
the maid vampires.
The maid vampires.
Or
However,
the new vampires, or whatever they were.
However, his punishment didn't fit the crime. We won't go into the details in case anybody hasn't read that, but I don't feel that his punishment fit what he actually did. In fact, it was worse.
The thing is, the way that Remy described it was that you don't just have one. It will go through every single crime that you've ever done making sure that you've atoned for all of them. So that might have been the first one, and because he was so sure that he had done the right thing, maybe it considered him atoned and then moved on to like lesser things that he was worried about or felt like he had done wrong, even if they were just like subconsciously and like in his head and he hadn't actually done them. But the way that Remy spoke about it was very much like, you can get out this prison if you just atone. But the thing that he is accused of in terms of the prison is being born, which he can't atone for.
Right. Which is why he knows he gets out with the flower.
Yeah. But the way that he says it is like pretty much like, oh no, you can just get out if you just survive the torture.
Has he ever seen this happen though?
I don't know. But he didn't give any like allusions to the fact that it wasn't possible.
Right.
So maybe he also just believes that they're all just going to get out by forgiving themselves and for recognizing what they've done.
Okay. So here's the question. What's the worst thing you've ever done? What would you have to relive over and over again?
Full disclosure. The day that I left my sister with my family. That is like the most haunting look on her face ever. It was horrendous.
Is it enough to be like that it would like make you like scream and torture perpetually, or would it be like meh, you know?
I think if anything it would play what happened after I left and what she was left in. So not just the like you left her, it was a why didn't you take her with you?
Right.
So it will probably do all of that kind of
that's not really
psychological damage.
That was a save yourself situation though. That wasn't necessarily did something. That's you're judging yourself on that, but that doesn't but
that's the point, isn't it?
I guess.
It picks what you think is the worst thing that you've ever done. Because like imagine if you go there and then all of a sudden you're like, when you were 3 you lied, and you're like, what?
Right,
I don't remember that.
Yeah. God, I don't think that I've ever.
What is he barking at?
I don't know. I don't know what I could. Okay. So last week.
Was it that recent?
Last week. It's embarrassing. I don't even want to tell the listeners because everybody's going to think I'm a terrible person. Last week I was at a store and I came out of the store into, you know, like how they have like the sliding doors, but then there's like the area in between like the two sets of sliding doors where like the shopping carts and shit are. Okay. So I was leaving a store and there was a lady and she flagged me down and was waving her arms all around and she was holding out a clipboard. And I read it and it was like American Foundation for Deaf something or other. And I realized she was deaf. I don't know sign language, but she was holding this thing, you know, I went, oh, you know, of course. And I signed her what I thought was a petition until I saw it said donation amount. And I have no cash on me. So I'm like trying to communicate to her that I'll go back into the store and get cash back, which I don't know sign language. So I'm just pointing at the register. And anyway, I go back in the store. I grab a garden.
You do realize that they wouldn't have put somebody there with a clipboard if they couldn't lip read.
I was, but she didn't seem to understand.
Oh, okay.
She wasn't supposed to be there. She was... The store didn't know that she was there.
So she's the crime.
Well, yes, it's her fault. No, but so I go in and I grab a garden gnome and I go to the register and most, you know, it takes me like 20 minutes to get through this stupid line. And I get to the register.
Do you now have a garden gnome because you had to get cash back, so you now have a garden gnome you didn't want?
Well, it gets worse. Okay. That's the worst thing I ever did wasn't getting money for this lady. So I go to the cashier after waiting like 20 minutes and they don't do cash back. So now I have to buy this stupid gnome that I didn't want and go out and then try to communicate to this lady. So I use the notepad on my phone and I write with my stylus that I'm going to go next door because it's like a shopping complex and try to get cash back next door, which she doesn't look like she understands, even though I've written it in my notepad. So I point next door, and she blows me a kiss, and I'm like, okay, she understands. So I go next door. They don't do cash back. I go the next door over. They don't do cash back. I go to the next door over. They don't do cash back. And they tell me that none of the stores in the complex do cash back. So I sneak through the dark parking lot, hiding behind vehicles, get into my car and leave.
Nah, that's not the worst thing you've ever done.
That makes
that was a crime of inconvenience.
I felt so bad.
No, I would have too. Because
everybody was leaving her though. Everybody was like, no, not even reading it, not realizing that she was deaf, and I just left her there. She might still
you'll pay it. But you'll pay it forward, though. You are the kind of person that the next time you see someone and you do have cash, you'd donate.
I will, but I would go, if I went to the chamber, it would just be an endless loop of me trying to communicate to this woman by making kissing gestures.
Kissing noses and going, my best friend is a deaf dog.
Trying to relate to her and communicate.
Yeah. It's like, I know how you feel. My friend has a deaf dog.
Oh my God, I felt so bad. So now I'm thinking to myself, like, I should learn sign language. I should really learn. So now I'm thinking about learning sign language, just because I keep thinking, like, this would have never happened if I had only known sign language. But
you could also just go to the website of American Deaf, whatever the charity is called, and make an online donation.
Yeah, but she was standing out there waiting for me, and I just left. I ran away.
She wasn't waiting for you. She was waiting for anyone.
Oh, God. She had no money.
I feel bad that people think that that's how you collect for charity.
That's how you do it here. You stand around and annoy people. Not that she was annoying, but...
That's not how you should... Like, you shouldn't guilt trip people into donating.
Yeah. Well, that's how it works here. You gotta make people feel bad by not being able to...
Like the South Park episode?
Yes.
Would you like to donate $1 to hungry children in Africa? No. Okay, would you like to press the stomach on the child in front of you?
Oh, my belly hurts. So bad. Yeah.
Would you like to announce into the tannoy that you do donate?
So you would
to donate.
So you would not like to donate to the hungry children. Oh my God. Anyway, okay.
Would you like to put a hamster through college today?
Well, let's get on to spoilers, because I've got some and you've got some. So guys, be sure to tune out if you haven't read Charm or Covet, Court, because we've got big spoilers. You go ahead, and then.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there was a bit where Remy kind of said to Grace that he kind of wishes that she had held out a bit in the mate department.
Yeah. So they're not siblings, as we at one point predicted, because that would be real weird.
And it makes me kind of think that he had another future path for her that he had seen.
Huh.
And if she hadn't have chosen Hudson, she would have been mated to someone else. And if we think about it, Cyrus would have definitely planned when he was going to take Grace, when they were at the ceremony, he was going to take Grace to his home in London, and I don't think he was.
He was going to send her to the prison.
He was going to send her to the prison.
Ooh, that is a good theory.
Because then she would have met Remy.
Yeah, before she challenged for inclusion on the circle.
Mm-hmm. Because at that point, the bond with Jackson was fake, and Hudson wasn't tangible. He wasn't a physical person to be able to have created the bond.
Oh, that would have been even worse, though, because Hudson would have still been in her head and still in love with her because of everything that happened in Charm, and would have had to witness her.
Yep.
With Remy.
Yep.
That would have been awful. I'm glad that it didn't. Yeah.
It didn't, but at the same time, Remy probably saw that future happening. If that's what he meant by that.
Right.
he saw that future happening and saw what he could have had, and now he has to watch.
If not,
He doesn't seem to be too like down about it, but he definitely is a lot more friendly towards her, as if something had happened already.
right.
So that's what my thoughts were. Because why else would you say that? Like, oh, I wish you'd held out a little in the mate department, as if someone was better waiting in the wings. He said, like, yeah, somebody with a cheerier disposition. And she goes, oh, like you? And he's like, nah. as if she had, like, hit the nail on the head.
Yeah.
Which made me think even more that my theory was correct.
See, if it's not canon, message Tracy with it. And I bet, because it's not written in the story, it could become canon later. Oh, anyway. No, I don't like your next note.
Yeah, Grace asks how Remy and Calder ended up knowing each other. She kind of works out that they love each other, but not in a sexual way. It's definitely more like a brother and sister familial way. And Remy goes, Calder and I go way back, and I've seen her end.
Yeah, he says, I've seen her end, and it's not in this prison. And does that mean...
So he knew all along.
Did he know all along? Because he was, like, or did the path that they went on change from what he anticipated? I thought...
Well, when he says that Grace's path changed, it wasn't that he saw different things. It was that she disappeared completely.
Oh, okay. Here's the thing. I thought that when, and maybe I'm totally making this up, but I thought that when Calder died, he said, like, it wasn't supposed to, like, end like this. Or, like, I thought that what he predicted wasn't correct. Or
maybe.
Because he seemed really shocked that she was dead. Like, it really rocked his world.
Maybe when we're reading through Court again, we'll see whether something happens, like a specific moment happens, or somebody else's decision meant that Calder was in that spot.
Yeah, that, like, she sacrificed herself. I can't remember how she died.
But yeah, I think that it will be evident in court whether something changed.
Yeah.
Because he seemed to be pretty happy about them joining this army and being in this war. If he knew that Calder was going to die, surely he would have tried to prevent it.
Right, he would have told her to sit out.
Or is that not his way with time?
Like he can't. I wouldn't.
Is he like Doctor Who? Is he like Doctor Who, where he's like, no, this is a fixed point in time. I cannot interfere. No, Pompeii.
But would he have been as upset? Like, because he wouldn't
know. I don't know.
Anyway, well, okay. So your first spoiler, the you should have held out in the mate department, and Remy potentially being destined for Grace was actually a better spoiler than what I have. Mine was just an Easter egg, but I was reading with Taylor last night. We are currently reading Covet as well, but we're at the beginning. And if you do recall, Grace and Hudson have their own little study session, and it was the study session where Hudson stomps off because Grace had, before the study session, sent Jackson a text that said something about, what did the mummy say, something, and Jackson texts back, I miss my heart. Hudson sees that and thinks that, you know, it's Grace, and Jackson doesn't realize that it's a joke. However, in those scenes, they are doing a joint project together. So I put the screenshot in the card while they're working on the project. Grace says, I give him my ideas, and after a few minutes of debate, we settle on the butterfly effect. Is it ethical to change something in time for the right reasons if you know that it'll change other things later on, maybe in a not so okay way?
Oh.
And Hudson is acting weird that entire time, and he stomps off.
That makes sense now.
Yeah. So that was because this is right at the beginning of Covet. That was a very good Easter egg sprinkled in for charm.
Yeah. And it does kind of allude to what he went through in charm and the decisions that he made when they returned to not tell her.
Right.
But also, if they're going back to the Shadow Realm, there is an opportunity to do it again.
There is, and you know, it makes me nervous because, like, they're gonna fuck something up.
Oh yeah, yeah. There's a new movie on Netflix called The Caller. It's like a thriller, kind of supernatural, ghosty kind of one. And a lady from 30, 40 years ago manages to call the present, and like, because the lady picks up and befriends this old lady, she never commits suicide. So she changes the course of time. And this lady can then affect things because she's the one in the past. So she can change things, and then 30 years later, the main character is seeing it, like, in the present. And there are things and people that she remembers, but when she wakes up, they're gone. They completely just disappeared. They never existed. They never had a child. Like, there's a wall where there wasn't a wall before. And like, stories change. And she was like, can you imagine being the only person who thinks that something happened and knows that you met someone, and everyone else in the world doesn't know who you're talking about?
Yeah.
And that scares me. Like, coming back from the Shadow Realm, and all of a sudden, for some reason, Mackay doesn't exist. that kind of big deal moment.
Right. Grace's...
or like, they get back out and, I never had a brother. What are you on about?
You know what I'm really hoping is it isn't like everybody said, like, you know, oh, maybe Xavier will be able to be brought back. Like,
nah.
Grace's parents never died.
Oh. No, I think sometimes death is needed in books, and
yes.
That sounds really callous and cold, but it makes you fear for your loved ones in the book, because otherwise, why would you care?
Yeah.
If you have no reason to fear their lives, then why do you keep reading?
As an author, I can understand, like, okay, so I can't give any spoilers because, you know, we do have listeners who have read my book and some who have said that they're going to. But my book, The Channel, which you can buy on all platforms, there's a character who dies. If you finish the book, you know who it is. And I personally was quite attached to this character. And
I was fuming.
I thought about bringing this character back, not in a physical sense, but almost like a Vivian's memories of this character are so intrusive that it's almost like how Hudson existed in Grace's head, where she's almost picturing him almost Edward style. But then I thought about it and I'm like, no, that's a cop-out. That's me projecting my desire to keep this character, when in reality this character died for a very, very specific reason, and I need to stay the course. Just because I miss this character, it just means that I need to make better, make more characters that I love just as much. Mm-hmm. So
the thing is, I don't even like. I got to the end of the book and I was like, but is she dead, or she just disappeared?
Right.
Like, I was like concerned that I had misunderstood the.
I was talking about the other character. The
other character. Oh yeah, no, the other character. But yeah, like, there's always that moment of like, are they dead? But are they dead though? If they're my favorite character, like at the end of the trilogy of A Court of Thorn and Roses, when it was like, and then they wake up, and you're like, for fuck's sake, I warned him 2 minutes ago.
Yeah.
Sometimes them being like rebirthed or reborn or brought back to life is actually one of the most irritating plot twists, because it makes you suspicious of every single death, and then therefore you don't actually feel the deaths as importantly, because you constantly think like, well, it's okay because there's a loophole. Like Supernatural. How many times have Sam and Dean died? So many times. How many times have they come back? every single time.
Yeah, sometimes I
So
think
when one of them dies, you know it's not going to last more than an episode.
Sometimes I think it's necessary, like in like the very first Pokemon movie, like Ash dies and Pikachu's sitting there shaking, Pika, Pika, and all the Pokemon are crying and all their little magical tears sprinkle on Ash and bring him back, and it's like that.
But it doesn't happen again.
Right, it's not like that's a weekly occurrence where, oh, Pika, Pika.
And I also reckon that was probably a standalone episode that they tried to make sure was going to actually be a hit.
It was a movie. It was like the first movie.
Yeah, make you feel it.
Right.
And then you're like, okay, I'm invested now.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think the deaths are definitely important. And if a book doesn't have even the threat of a death, then it doesn't make it as realistic. Like, you can't have big old, like, battles and, like, magic and all these, like, scary, scary threats, and then no one dies.
Right. And, you know, even Crave, it kind of took a while for anybody of major significance. Xavier was really, like, the first one, and it was a long time before anybody else of significance died.
I think that's because the book itself started off with death.
Yeah.
I think that Tracy probably wanted to give us not the full sense of security, but that time for Grace to grieve for her parents, because she still is. And she meets Jackson when he is still grieving his brother. And I think that the Xavier death comes at a time when they have healed from that.
Right, it was on to the next thing.
Yeah, because Jackson knows that Hudson's there. He knows that he's alive, even if he is a kind of ghostly person in Grace's head. And Grace is not over her parents dying, but she is not feeling it as strongly as she did when she first arrived at Katmere. So it wasn't like the perfect timing for a death, because there's no such thing for that. But we had just kind of got used to the characters themselves being okay.
Right.
As they could be. Okay as they could be.
Okay. Well, next few chapters, I think we're going to be able to get a lot more now that, you know, we've already got some good theories. So, guys, thanks so much for listening. This episode was a little bit later. I think that we should just make that a permanent disclaimer that episodes will either air on Wednesday or Thursday. Mm-hmm. Just depending on, like, how much.
We're busy people.
Yeah. So Wednesdays, Thursdays, and we've had a couple issues with episodes. For some reason, they'll, like, only upload a few seconds of the clip. It's Podbean is being weird. So if for any reason...
Goddamn Podbean!
I know. If for any reason there's ever an issue with the podcast, our group, Crave the Book Podcast Tea Room, just, you know, post in there and let us know if the episode uploads, because it's usually, you know, I'm not sitting there uploading it. I schedule them, and I will fix it. And usually if it's messed up on Apple and Spotify, it is working on YouTube because they're like separate files. So feel free to check YouTube if it's ever messed up, but please let us know. That way we can fix it.
Yeah. And don't feel stupid that, like, your thing's not working. It's probably everybody's.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So, guys, thanks so much for listening, and we'll see you next week.
Bye-bye.